My name's Steve Valance, and I was LAPD at one time. With what's going on right now, on an officer's perspective, granted, everything that happened with those 4 officers was wrong, and I, like to go into that in detail if I can. But if we're talking about reformation, as long as there are still officers driving around right now working that I was on the department with, if they're still operating under those guidelines, I don't think any reformation has occurred or can occur. I think you need to bring the whole thing down and start all over from scratch. LAPD was built in their current state to intimidate, and the rest of the country has followed our lead to some extent. I didn't research this too thoroughly before I did this, but if I'm not mistaken, William Parker was a chief with the LAPD, and he was important because he created the current design, the current feel of the police department today. It's aggressive and it's over the top, and again, it's followed by, our policies have been followed by every department, and I can get into that too, but let me say, there are going to be differing opinions here, but I was actually there. I was on the department. I saw how they hired people. I saw how once you're in and you're off probation, you can do pretty much whatever you want. At least once. If you don't take out a bunch of kids in a crosswalk, drunk on a Saturday afternoon, you're going to be fine. Those over-the-top things, like what happened in Minneapolis, those over-the-top things, you're fired automatically. But civil service protection is it's difficult to penetrate, and police leagues, especially the Los Angeles Police Protective League, it's strong, and officers are protected. Granted, the idea is that you're going to have officers who are objective, empathetic, who are part of the community. And the truth is, they're not part of the community. They're a community among themselves. And when you get in and when you're accepted, it's a family. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. And to get there is difficult. You have to play a game. You have to jump through hoops. And again, differing opinions. I want to hear what folks have to say about my honesty. I hope I'm being honest. But first, I need to show who I am. All right, let's start out with a picture over here. This is Class 381B, LAPD. And if you haven't spotted me yet, this guy down here, I was the guidon. I was fast. I used to be really fast. And when you're fast and you're in shape, they need someone to carry that flag who's going to be out in front the whole time. So I got it, and Academy was something. But anyway, let's talk about getting there first. If folks are interested in my perspective, I'll make more videos and I'll talk with people about this, because this is an important subject. And if I can help any way in the Reformation discussion, well, I'm more than willing. But let's go back to the Academy. So this is the Academy training, 640 hours. On March 30, 1981, Norton Stephen Valance. I use my middle name, Steve. Yeah, it was about a 4-week academy. They call it a stress academy. I was 22. I just come out of college wrestling. I don't know if anybody knows how rigorous that is, but I wasn't really impressed. But they try. They have to get people in shape. People who come in out of shape, and they have to work them up. I get it. And one thing about LAPD we need to understand, it's paramilitary. If you don't understand that term, para means like military. So LAPD's always been paramilitary. When I was in the academy, spit shine shoes, the gig lines in our uniforms, all kinds of stuff. The hair, everything. So when you graduate and you become a full-fledged police officer, you go on the street and you work a division as a patrol officer. I went to Wilshire Division, and that was July, I think, in '81. Wilshire Division, that's what do they call it? Mid-city, but it's got some areas. At that time, had some areas that were pretty hot, and hot, I mean by criminal activity, and criminal activity, I mean gangs, and by gangs, I mean minorities. And we're gonna go more into the academy selection, how you get there, because that's a mess in itself, and it's really difficult to understand the categories of male, white, African American male, Hispanic male in the selection process, but we'll get to that. Yeah, this is when you get off probation. Probation, you receive this. This is a certificate of appointment, and when you get this, you're protected. I worked with guys and girls that like to hurt people. They went out of their way. I knew a guy that put a notch in his gun. Yeah, he's still on the job today. I'm not going to name him, but yeah, you get this when you get off probation. For them to fire an officer, they have to mess up bad or mess up repeatedly. I've known officers that have, while drunk, accidentally shoot and kill somebody who remained on the job with a 6-month suspension. I know I'm off track, but every month they have what's called a rap sheet where they put everybody's the complaint results. Every month there's a conclusion, so such and such officer arrested, driving under the influence, 15 days, another second occurrence, DUI, 15 days. And so forth. You've got all these silly things. Accidental discharge of your weapon. You've got battery. You've got... It's crazy. One crazy part about the department is it's such a large department. There's a bunch of characters, and everybody's got something going. Just characters. One aspect I really liked about it. Yeah, okay. Let me circle back. So... to get into the academy, it's a selection process, and I think if you're talking about reforming the department, you have to change your selection process, because right now what you got military. Well, I'm not going to bash the military, but you've got guys and gals that have come out of Fallujah, and you want to throw them in an LAPD unit, and you want them to keep the peace and do a good job. No, you want them to be ramming and doing the takedowns and stuff. But that's not all of the job. That's not a large part of the job. Talking is a large part of the job. But as far as entry, you had to fill out an application, as one does, to get on a job, and there are automatic disqualifiers that are pretty much on the front page. The drug use, right? And LAPD, because they bought hook, line, and sinker the war on drugs, and they hit, marijuana crazy arrest. And if I do another one, I do need to cover the DEA when they arrived in 1987 to teach us about asset forfeiture. That's if an individual is arrested, maybe selling weed in a car. You can take that car with no rights, nothing. Property has no rights. You take that car, it's a seizure. Asset forfeiture, you're forfeiting your assets. I was trained in asset forfeiture in Newton Division, I believe, in '87. And you can take everybody's shit, and there are no consequences, no recourse. You can take the car, follow up to the house, take the house. There's no recourse. Everything, and you write it up. It's yours. You know, this is going on in the South, from what I understand. You know, it's still targeting minorities, which is what I'd like to get into, because yes, LAPD does target minorities, and systemically they do. Again, back to that. So we're talking about the entry to the academy. They want to know your drug use history. Now, the way they worded it when I was there, they said, you may have experimented with marijuana 3 times within the past 10 years. Okay. So they want you to admit how much marijuana have you smoked. I mean, my situation was, I was a kid growing up in Southern California in high school in the 70s. And when I was a freshman, before I got into wrestling, I smoked a lot of weed. Now, when I was filling out my application for LAPD, they said you could have experimented 3 times. And granted, by that time, I hadn't used smoked marijuana since 1973. But if I had admitted to my actual junior year in high school to have been high the entire time, I would have been disqualified. I don't know if I can reword that a bit. That seemed a little off. When I admitted to my marijuana use, 3 times was the limit within 10 years. So at that time, I put a date in my head of 1973. I tried it twice, which was 10 years at that point. So I put that in my head. I tried it twice because they asked you. They said, have you ever smoked marijuana in the last 10 years more than 3 times? So I said, no. And they followed up. They hit me a little harder. No, I didn't. But, I'm looking at this guy straight in the face. And it had been years, so I'm able to justify that. But that's a lie. That's a lie, any way you stretch it. So I looked at that investigator, and I lied about my drug use. When you have restrictive criteria such as that, you're going to get some people that can lie fairly well. I was taught when I came on the department to, let me see if I can get this right, admit nothing, deny everything, and demand proof. Words to live by, which is something we learned from the academy, from that first lie. I remember talking to officers while I was in the academy. We were talking about that drug use question. Everybody fudged on it. People were concerned about it. And there were people full-on ex-gangsters. These were good people, and I was in the academy with them. But we had to lie. And when we get in the field, we have to lie some more. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to lie. And that's what I wanted to cover on that. The academy, or getting into the academy aspect, that those initial questions, you're forced to lie. And what I've found over the years when I'm watching the department as they're having problems, Rafael Perez, Rodney King, so what they do is they tighten up the requirements. They make it stricter, right, to these drug use questions. So the only people that are getting hired are the ones that can lie straight in the face, or the kid who's been in his mom's basement and hasn't lived life at all. So actually, when you're getting these officers pooled together for an academy class, you're not getting a cross-section of peers at all. You're getting people that either haven't been caught doing what they're doing or the ones that haven't done anything. They're not going to be able to relate to you. And since I've been gone off the department, I've become a grown-up and learned how the world works, the population isn't built like that. But that doesn't make them untrustworthy as we're finding out today. Or it doesn't... You're not going to have sure candidates that are absolutely going to do the best job all the time. So that was my getting into the academy experience. And it was pretty simple. And again, if we're talking about reforming LAPD, I mentioned the way the uniforms were designed to intimidate. And a big line in the academy is called command presence. That you're always going forward. You're always in control of the situation, which is necessary when you're out there on the street. I get that. But there are some times when backing off and talking about a situation works instead of just go, go, go. So as far as the entry requirements, we've got a population of some really good people, and those good people may have not done something that would be a disqualification from LAPD. But if you're showing people the entry requirements, and you've got a guy who 35, he's accomplished quite a lot in his life, but he thinks back his teens, and he was arrested for cocaine use and possession, which is a felony. He's not going to apply. So you're excluding people with potential and people that would empathize with the citizenry, which is another aspect. If you look at me, obviously I'm a white guy, California white guy. I grew up in Diamond Bar, which is it's a large town now, about 30 miles east of LA. So myself and quite a few, the majority of people I knew, when we went to work, patrol or whatever we were doing, we came in from our houses, mine that would be eventually an hour away, drive into work and drive back out. And some of these areas were literal war zones to me. And talk about culture shock. And again, we're talking about the selection process of officers. I'm a 22-year-old white kid who's never done anything wrong because I've probably never been caught, but I'm a good guy. Sure, I'm a good candidate for this. I'm in great shape. I wrestled all through college and high school. I got fairly decent grades. I got a high school diploma. So yeah, that's a good candidate. But you've got candidates all over the place that you're disqualifying out the gate because they made a judgment in error. Could be many years later. These absolute disqualifiers are destroying any kind of reforming of the department. But I think it's going to have to start from the bottom. It's going to have to be removed all the way to the bricks. The way you build this thing, the way you build a police officer. Do you want a Rambo? What are you looking for? And when we're talking about the Rambos, LAPD and everybody else, right? They hire a lot of people that are just coming out of the military, and I get that because they're supposedly competent around weapons. They're supposedly they've matured enough to be able to deal with people. So that's what they're trying to achieve by hiring these people. And subsequently, these people have just come out of war. You're not getting a talker. You're getting a guy of action, which, again, is kind of what they're looking for. So you got what you wanted, But fortunately, they were able to mix myself in and others that I went to the academy with who were, not military. I would say it was 50%, 50-50, military and not military people, and certain people did better. Obviously, they work better with different types of people, but then you've got two military people that want to go out there and they want to be back in battle, doing battle, and unfortunately, I'm talking about the 80s here. You had the ability to go into a division such as mine, Newton Division, and you can find yourself a shooting if you want. That's not hard to find, and the way the call loads are going, you're going to be getting arrest after arrest after arrest, felony after felony, and that's all you're doing. You're arresting people all night, call upon call upon call, and that's how overtaxed they are. That's some real stress. So I got a little bit off topic here. My selection in the academy. So yeah, I'll go through that real quick and tell you folks how I got in there. Let me mention real quick that I did go to college, and this is an important part of my life because I wrestled in college. Mount San Antonio College. Yeah, that's that arrogant little. Yeah. I weighed about 139 pounds. I was almost 6 foot at the time. And, I was fairly skilled, at wrestling. I wasn't winning tournaments at a college level. And I had started late. If you'll remember that I said I was stoned most of my freshman year. But after that, I cleaned my act up and joined wrestling, got in my junior year. So I was late at the game there. But I did well. I didn't kick butt like I would have. My son did. My son, CIF 4 years in a row. Big difference. But having a wrestling background really helped me out a lot. And if you haven't wrestled, it's physical. You're learning how to fight, and subsequently you're learning how not to fight. Now, when I entered the academy, I mentioned I was 21 the day I was sworn in. That would be March 30, 1981. And if anybody thinks that date sounds familiar, that's the day that Ronald Reagan was shot. And they announced that when they stormed in the room on the first day. So I've got that embedded in my head forever. So yeah, you've got some issues there. You've got potential honesty. This whole method has to be started over. If folks are interested, I'll carry on. Another day I'll talk about more stuff. All right, thanks a lot. Just my 2 cents.